Imagine having the time and money to follow your passions and live life on your own terms. Welcome to Podcasting Mastery, where you'll learn the secrets of podcasting your way to a stress-free lifestyle. Let's grab a cool tropical drink and then join James, Kimberly, and the Turtle in the Secret Beach Hut Studio.
Yes, this is James Martell along with Kimberly Juchnowski.
Hello there.
And again, we are tucked into the Secret Beach Hut Studio, and we are so glad you've decided to join us. This week, we'll be continuing our conversation about developing a lifestyle business so we can all spend less time doing business and more time enjoying our families, more time traveling, and more time doing all of the things that matter to us most. It's for these reasons we continue to focus on strategies for both developing a passive monthly income stream and passive ways of developing new clients and customers for your business. Kimberly, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, James?
Very well, thank you. And I do understand we have a very special guest joining us today.
We absolutely do. Today we have Jessica Kupferman joining us. Jessica is the co-host of She Podcast and has agreed to take us behind the scenes and talk about why she started her podcast, ideas for monetization, selecting guests, making mistakes, and the ones that they have made, and the exact steps that they took to launch and grow their podcast.
Perfect. As usual, why don't you go ahead and push the play button, get a little music going to set the mood for the show. Now, Jessica Kupferman is a digital media strategist with over 15 years of experience working in the internet marketing space. Combining a mix of creativity and business development, Jessica works with companies, small businesses, and podcasters looking for fresh ways of selling and growing online. Jessica is the co-founder of She Podcast and the Podcasting School for Women, who has been featured on the Social Media Examiner, Entrepreneur.com, TMZ, Entrepreneur on Fire, and many more. She's an experienced, sought-after speaker and podcaster known for her humor and tell-it-like-it-is personality. She's also an inaugural member of the Academy of Podcasters. Jessica, welcome to Podcasting Mastery.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's great to have you on board, and I do understand that you have a little baby.
I do. Well, he's 15 months.
Well, that's a little.
He's not that little.
It's okay. You have a little toddler.
I mean, compared to my other two, he's little. My other two, my oldest is just turned 19, and my son will be 18 in June.
Now, there's a widespread.
Free babysitters.
Yes, many people ask me if he was an accident, but no, they were the accident. He was my science experiment.
There you go. There you go. So with this in mind, then, before we dig in and talk about She Podcast, take some time and tell us a little bit about yourself personally. Share your story and tell us about you.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how far back to go. I guess as related to podcasting, I've always had a big mouth. And used to pretend to have my own game show when I was a kid. My dad had like a recorder and a microphone, and I would sit with my sister, and whatever we played, I was always the host. And then I went to college and was a communications major, and then I had kids like immediately after college, so I was always taking whatever job I could. And so it took me a while before I got into marketing, and then I was doing digital media and online advertising, and then in 2005, I started my own business, went back to school for a little bit of design expertise, and I was doing design work and then design and social media consulting, and then design and social media consulting, and I started a podcast 2013. And oftentimes my clients were asking me how I did my show, how did I fit it in, because it was doing a ton for my business. And so I started Podcasting School for Women, which is a course teaching women how to start their own show, because I think women have a bit of a barrier to entry because they seem to be more afraid of the tech, the time involved, the money, etc. And also I started a community called She Podcast with my friend Elsie Escobar, who's been podcasting for such a long time, since like 2006. She's an award-winning podcaster, and she and I were good friends. We just started a Facebook group just for women to sort of collaborate with each other about how they handle this or that. And it grew and grew and grew. So now that's actually the business that I focus on, not my design, social media, digital media, consulting. I more focus on helping women podcast, education around podcasting. And actually I'm starting to get back into the digital media a little bit, just to sort of teach people how to get sponsorships, but for smaller shows, because there's an industry standard that doesn't match up with both my experience and, you know, I think with smaller podcasters with the ability to land advertisers just because they're not, you know, affiliated with mid-roll or larger companies. So I'm trying to help the smaller guy get sponsors and advertisers that work for them. I guess it's a long version, I guess.
It's a perfect version. It sounds like you were made for podcasting from a very, very young age. So what a perfect business to be in now, especially if you enjoy talking. And I've definitely heard a few episodes, and you are tell it like it is, which is great. People need that. They need to get their information, the straight goods, I guess. So
yes.
Love that. And
Thanks.
I'm actually a part of She Podcast group in Facebook. And I know from personal experience that it's extremely helpful to women. It seems like more of I guess a safer group to be with. I am a part of other groups as well that are open to men and women. And I definitely see a difference in the group and the support that you get. So you did touch. Yeah, and it's worked fabulously. I mean, it's such a great group of women. Everybody's helping each other out, and just a really great place to go for information. So you touched on it just now, but I would like to know what exactly inspired you to start a podcast about podcasting like ours, specifically for women.
I actually wasn't inspired. That was Elsie's idea.
Okay.
See, I really started the group because I was at New Media Expo with her and a couple other women podcasters, and I found that when I was commiserating with them, I got better solutions to the problems than when I would ask my podcasting heroes. Just, you know, some of it was lifestyle, some of it was, I don't know, like I asked someone very famous what I should do about increasing downloads, and he asked me how long my show was. I said an hour. This is when I was doing Lady Business Radio. And he said, well, if you want more downloads, just cut the show to a half hour. It'll double your downloads. And I was like, well, then I asked my audience, would that be cool with them? And they were like, oh, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You better not. And so when I asked my women folk podcasters what I should do, you know, they started giving me ideas about community and outreach, and those are the kind of answers I was looking for. And I don't know that it's necessarily a gender difference or just, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but there was just I felt the really strong need for a Facebook group. And then, gosh, it probably wasn't even 3 months in where Elsie came to me. You know, I asked her to administrate the group with me because she just knew so many people. She knew she started adding people left and right because she had been doing it for so long. And it must have been 2 months later, she said, you know, I've always wanted to do a show about podcasting, but from a women's point of view. Would you like to co-host it with me? And I was like, well, you've been doing it much longer. And she said, yes, but you have this popular show and it was popular very quickly, and you started this group with me, and, you know, we're friends. We're very different people, but we're very good friends. And so it's worked out really well. So it was her idea. And I always compare us to like Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla. Like, I'm really just the comic relief. Like I don't listen as much as she does. I don't know the tech as well as she does. I am more of a marketing, branding, growth type chick, and she's much more of the audience, content, technical type voice, I guess, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. Now, I would say, too, and in defense of the male side of the species here, I feel like I have to chime in on this. Yeah.
No need to defend yourself.
But I will say, women are natural networkers. Where guys really, we're not. I know, you know, even in my house here with my wife Arlene, I always give her a hard time because she tells everybody everything all the time. If you need to get something out into the world, just tell her, and then she'll tell her mother, and she'll tell her aunt. Next thing you know, the entire family knows everything. Or you walk into our place and she'll give you a product demo. She doesn't sell anything, but whatever she bought lately, and they're all huddled around this new little thing, and they just network so well. And I don't know if that's just a male female thing, but I don't think the guys do it that well. I don't think you guys are very natural at doing that. So let me ask you, Jessica. Business owners start podcasts for all kinds of reasons. You know, advocacy, business, generate leads, sales, build a personal or corporate brand. What's your number one reason for starting a podcast, and why?
My number one reason was I really wanted to go on and be interviewed by other podcasters, and I started looking at the business ones out there, 4-Hour Work Week, Entrepreneur on Fire, Amy Porterfield, and I thought, those people are never going to have me on. Wow. I have no shot in hell of getting on these shows. I'll just create my own. And then not only will I have the publicity of my own show, but I'll be able to give voice to all the tons of women who also aren't getting on those shows. Because I started looking at John is much better about it now, but at the time I was looking at the guests and it was like, dude, woman, dude, woman. And so it felt a little bit, like climbing the Matterhorn. So I just wanted to do my own. And then I thought, well, I'll just have all the women on that I want to talk to, that I look up to. It makes sense. I mean, I don't blame them. I don't think that they're sexist or gender biased. I think that when you start a show and you want to interview the people that have inspired you, more often women have inspired women, men have inspired men. So I don't think that that's abnormal, or like I said, that they were doing it on purpose. I just think the chances of, I don't know, I don't want to say being taken seriously, but I just felt like I would like to interview the women that I looked up to, and the men already have their shows, it seems. So we're all set.
Great. So I noticed when I was looking through your episodes and listening to a few that you definitely have different lengths all over the place. They could be, 25 minutes. They could be an hour and a half up to 2 hours. So I'd like it if you could tell us a little bit about the format of your show, how often you record, episode length, guest types, that sort of thing.
Are you talking about She Podcasts?
Yes.
Or Lady Business?
She Podcasts.
I didn't realize that they were that variant, because normally we basically record for about an hour. I didn't realize that they were that different, but we usually have an agenda. Often we don't get to the full agenda. Sometimes we are on a roll, so we keep going. I don't think that Elsie and I are really married to the time format as much as we are the conversation. We'd much rather, especially if it's topical, we'd much rather cover a topical piece and have it go on for a half hour than have to end at 45 minutes every single time. So that's really why and how we do it. There's no really rhyme or reason, except we have 4 or 5, whatever's on the agenda is what we cover. This last time it was 55 minutes. I think the time before was an hour and a half. Just depends on when we got to go, when we're done. She has 2 small children. I have a small child. And if we run out of time, we run out of time. So we just end it. Yeah.
Makes sense. And how often do you post? Is it every week, twice a week? What's your schedule like?
It's once a week. Yeah. It's we post on Mondays.
How about guests? How do you select the guest?
We don't have guests ever.
Oh.
And it's funny because we get pitched a lot. I'm started to respond back. Do you listen to our show? Because especially, I think, and I'm wondering if sometimes people are pitching to be on the show that think maybe they're pitching Lady Business Radio, which I did do a lot of women interviews, and you could pitch, although not now because it's pod faded at the moment. But it's often someone who's I have a great outlook on how to build your most authentic, and I'm just you don't listen to this show. Because if you had heard the show, you would know you're not going to pitch well on here.
Yeah.
And also we don't have guests. So, I think we have once or twice. I think Elsie had guests on when I was on maternity. We would be open to having a third person come on and discuss a specific topic. But for the most part, it's just she and I.
So,
but I can speak to how I chose for. That had almost 200 shows, and it still gets 1,000 downloads a month, even though I haven't done a show in a year.
Yeah. So people might be confusing the two if they follow you in general.
Yes, but I also, just for the purpose of this show, want you to know, to talk about guests and how I selected them. That's a system that I have that I would probably continue to use if we took guests on She Podcasts. But for Lady Business Radio, I was very selective and very specific, and I learned how to do that the hard way. So
if I could ask you, why have you decided not to interview guests?
For She Podcasts, that's a good question. I think she and I have a really good chemistry. It's gotten even better. Every show we do, it's better. I think that there's the whole problem with coordinating with the guest, getting their information, promoting them, having them promote. We have a really tight system for She Podcasts, and in order to have a guest, there's just that extra work involved that at first she and I just didn't have the time to do. Because when we first started the show, she's a full-time employee of Libsyn, so she has a full-time job with them. And then I was doing Lady Business Radio twice a week.
Okay.
And then so that was my full-time job at the time. She has her full-time job at the time. We just wanted to chat with each other about women in podcasting. We take a lot of listener feedback, but we don't have guests. And then when I went on maternity, something changed and shifted, or maybe it was the quality of people that were pitching to be on Lady Business. When I came back to work, I really just wanted to focus on the women podcaster thing and not so much the women's entrepreneurial thing. So I stopped for a little while just so I could maybe catch my breath and really think about what conversations did I want to have. Because, when you talk about business, especially online business, you can run into a habit of talking to the same person over and over. They're not, but you have the same conversation over and over and over. And I'm starting to feel that way.
So if I could bring up the business angle again, do you have a monetization model? You mentioned sponsorships, and you teach others how to get their podcast sponsored. What's your business model for She Podcast?
So right now we're still ironing out our business model. We tried group coaching last year and it went well financially, but she and I don't think enjoyed it as much as we could have. So we focus primarily on, we do monthly webinars and we sell the recordings of those webinars, and we're trying to build a podcasting education library. Mm-hmm. We also have the podcasting school for women, and that course is, you can split it and do the first half or the second half for around $300, or you can do the full thing for around $700. And so this year we've decided we're going to really push that once a quarter to get new members in the door, have sales, and do stuff like that. And then also sponsors and advertising and affiliate advertising, just a little here and there. Mm-hmm. And then she and I do coaching. We do coaching separately, and you can get packages with us both together because we both focus on such different things. Sounds like a lot. That was a mouthful, eh?
Sounds like a busy girl.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I want to shift it a little bit. I've learned that business owners who are considering starting a podcast, which is your audience, they're all looking to start podcasts or have already started them. Oftentimes they're worried about content, if they're going to have enough topics to cover. That type of thing sort of hinders them starting. What's your experience in selecting topics, and do you think you would ever run out?
I'll never run out of a topic. I could talk to a stranger on the bus. I'll never run out of things to say on any topic for any reason at any time. That's just me.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to interviewing guests. At first, I really wanted to know not just their secret of success, but how they balanced it all, how they managed things, but also what's interesting about them, what's unique about their story. When it comes to She Podcasts, we never run out of topics because we're both women podcasters, and there's always something. She did a show, we just had a huge snowstorm, for example, and it was the day that she records the feed, the Libsyn podcast. She had no power, no computer, so she had to do it from her phone with her co-host, Rob Walsh. And there's always a chat. 2 children, she doesn't have a television anyway, nothing for them to do. They can't go outside. It's always difficult. It's always something.
Yeah.
And so you really do never run out of topics. So if you're a business person, and if you, let me think of an example of a person who has a business, even as let's say social media marketing. Well, that stuff's always changing. You can always cover news and stuff, not to mention reviews, stuff that you use, stuff that you like, stuff that you're trying. Even with Elsie and I, we're always trying Zcast and audio. There's a million little tools and trinkets to play with, apps and computer things. There's 1,000 things that you can talk about. Books, review books, or people that you see that are doing the same thing as you, but in a different way. Or how about topics that you disagree with, and why people in your industry shouldn't be selling you this or shouldn't be doing that. I could go on and on. And it's really, that covers any subject. It could cover, skiing. It can cover health. It can cover anything. There's always something to talk about in your industry. And if there's not, I hate to ask, but what are you doing in that industry if you have nothing to say about it? Someone who put a gun to your head and told you how to be a health coach? Just stop it. If you have nothing to say about it anymore, really find a new thing to help people with, I think.
Very true. In other words, get a life.
Well, I just believe I feel like passionate people don't run out of things to say. I know that that's a very, very common fear, is I don't know what I'm going to say. But then once you get going, like I just did on a roll, it kind of snowballs, and you're just talk about this and this and this and this. And what about stuff you hate? And what about stuff you love? And what about stuff you're not sure about? And what, you go on and on. If you're passionate about something, if you're not, I find sometimes people are not passionate about it, and that's why they're worried about that. And then also people who are just how do you fit it in? Well, you don't. You don't fit it in. It's a priority. Yes, you have to do it, or you will be crushed under the weight of your own soul. You have to do it. If the question is how will I fit it in, really the question for me, and maybe you guys too, was how will I fit in the other stuff that has to be done, because this podcast is happening.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's
right. It's just happening.
Yeah.
If Facebook waits, so be it. If people don't get fed for dinner, oh well, ski. The podcast has to happen. It's happening. And so That's why I always question certain questions. I always question their motive. Like, if it's not burning in you to get out, don't bother. Leave it to the rest of us who have to have it done.
That's right.
You know?
So now this leads me to, I guess, perfectly into, I'm almost scared to ask, but really not. How do you prepare for each episode? Like, do you have a ritual? I mean, I've got a little ritual I go through. But what do you do? What do the two of you do to get ready and then to get into it?
My ritual with Lady Business, I mean, you don't mind that I talk about both, do you? Because they're,
no, let it rip.
I feel like your show might be geared more towards podcasts that I used to do, but I still want to share because she and I are co-hosts. So for Lady Business Radio, I had a really extensive form that they would fill out. They would send it back to me. I wouldn't really look at it until about an hour before the show. An hour before my interview, I would look through their things, pull out some topics that I wanted to discuss, but really I wanted it to be very, very spontaneous. So I would really try to avoid doing too much research because I didn't want to sound rehearsed, scheduled, or like I had the interview questions ahead of time. Sometimes I did. Often I did, but I just didn't want to sound that way. For She Podcasts, Elsie creates the show notes. I hate to say this, but normally she sends it to me like 15 minutes before we're about to record. I wouldn't say I'd like it to be sooner because I really don't have a preference, but sometimes it's sooner, sometimes it's not. She sends them to me. I look at the show notes. I see what articles she wants to refer to. I read them. Sometimes I have articles that I want to talk about. I add them. And again, if she's sending them to me 15 minutes prior, sometimes she doesn't see that article until we're recording. And then she's like, oh, I see you added an article. I'm like, yes. And then I go into my spiel about the article while she checks it out. I'm talking about it. So that's what I mean by having a great chemistry. Like, she can send me her show notes 5 minutes before. I could be in the restroom, come out, start recording, and as she's talking about this article she found, I've skimmed it so that by the time she's done explaining it, I can have a personal response. I don't need to have so much like research ahead of time unless there's like, and then, as a podcaster, you see what's coming through. Like, oh, Apple has a new podcast app on Apple TV, and oh, this is happening on Midroll, and this is happening. Normally we're on the same page about stuff we want to discuss without even knowing it. And so sometimes when I see her show notes, I'm just like, oh good, I'm glad she added that because I already have an opinion about it. And that's just because, again, it's topical and those things are happening as we're talking about them. But yes, it's partially prep and partial fly by the seat of your pants, but we always sound prepared, which is what matters, right? I mean, even if I give her or she gives me something last minute, I know that she'll need a moment to look at it, and so I'll just blabber until she's got the gist, and then we can have a discussion, if that makes sense. That's that's a behind the scenes version.
That makes perfect sense.
For all purposes, I'm discussing as she's looking over, and then we have an intelligent conversation about it.
Which is great. I can see it's actually time for us to take a very short break. When we return, we'll continue our conversation with Jessica of She Podcasts about challenges, building an audience, and much more. So don't go away.
More Podcasting Mastery with James and Kimberly from the Secret Beach Hut Studio after this.
Is your website out of date? Is it mobile friendly? Why not let us design your website and we'll make sure it looks the way it should on all platforms and devices, including iPhones, iPads, and other smartphones and tablets. We'll even optimize your site for search engines and make it easy for you to share your content and products on social sites such as Facebook and Twitter with built-in sharing features. For more information and to schedule your no-obligation free consultation, go to podcastingmastery.com/website. Once again, that's www.podcastingmastery.com/website.
Would you love to spend less time doing business and more time enjoying your family, more time traveling, and more time doing all of the things that matter to you most? Whether you're looking to develop a passive monthly income stream or you're looking for passive ways of generating new clients and customers for your business, James Martell's free podcasting webinar is the place to start. James Martell, an 11-year podcasting veteran, will show you how to quickly and easily launch a podcast that will impress all who hear it to attract all of the clients and customers you need, and how to do it all in less than 1 hour a week using equipment you already own. Register now for this lifestyle and business-changing webinar at podcastingmastery.com/webinar. We'll see you there. Once again, that's www.podcastingmastery.com/webinar.
When James Martell launched his affiliate Buzz podcast in the spring of 2003, he never dreamed he'd be sitting here all these years later with over 3 million downloads and 400 plus episodes. He gets thousands of listeners tuning in each week, but it wasn't always like that. In the beginning, he had to figure things out on his own. There were no books or guides available, so there was a lot of trial and error. And while there are many pieces to the puzzle for constructing a successful podcast, James Martell has boiled it down to the 12 core elements of the No Fail podcast in his most recent free report. Available for a limited time at podcastingmastery.com/no-fail.
Now back to Podcasting Mastery from the secret Beach Hut studio.
Yes, we're back. I'm here with my co-host Kimberly Juchnowski and Jessica Kupferman, co-host of She Podcast. Now, Jessica, how do you find, you've touched upon it a little bit, working with your co-host. Tell us about your co-host and the advantages and how you, because I can tell you really enjoy working with her. And do you recommend that everybody has a co-host?
No, I don't.
Good.
I don't recommend everybody has a co-host. I'm thinking about doing for Podcast Movement a session with her called How to Love and Care for Your Co-Host, like it's a pet. Because I feel like, there's just so many things that make it work that I didn't know I had. I think that she brings those things out in me and me and her. So first of all, I don't think if you're friends or related that it's a good idea. So like I tried to start a podcast with my cousin. She and I are great friends and we talk about TV and stuff, but I don't know. It just somehow pod faded or never got off the ground. Same with my sister. Like I feel like she and I would be really good co-hosts because we have really funny conversations, but there's an element there where I know more about podcasting and so I end up doing more of the work and consequently it's not getting done because I have because I have priorities to Elsie. And the thing that makes it work between Elsie and I is that she has her specific part that she works on. I have my specific part that I work on. And so I think because of that, I owe her the priority of doing the work and her to me. If she didn't do the show, like if she, for whatever reason, didn't do her part, I think she would feel terrible guilt because I would then be doing more to propel our show forward and vice versa. If I didn't do my part, schedule the emails and the social media and do the business model and handle the sponsors and stuff, I think she would feel like, well, I'm editing this, she's doing this whole thing, coming up with content and running the show. Like we both have an allegiance to each other and a mutual respect before we became friends. First we were business partners and then we were friends. And I think that's important. If you're friends first, there may not, and I don't want to say I don't know personal things about her because of course I do, but like, let's just say it's your husband. I mean, you have to have a really good, respectful partnership with that person because that needs to come above whatever personal feelings you have towards someone. And so Elsie and I didn't really have personal feelings about each other before we started this. And because we have a mutual respect first, our friendship blossomed from there. So I think when people try to, in fact, I even had an interview where people were like, doesn't Elsie live in like a shack in the mountain? I'm like, yes, I have nothing dishy really to say about her because yes, she doesn't live like I would say a normal person, but she doesn't live like the rest of us in the suburbs with, she does live on a mountain and she doesn't have central heat, central air, and she, they have organic everything and no couch. And it's just like the way that she lives is a little bit mind blowing, but, there's such a respect there for, here she is, this like basically little house on the prairie, but she's so technical and so knowledgeable about tech and so able and smart and everything else that I can't gossip about her the way I would a friend that I've known my whole life, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I can't and I wouldn't.
No.
Because
praise her accomplishments, it sounds like more that type of idea. Yeah.
And it's certainly not because I know her based on her accomplishments. It's just that as a business partner, we respect each other's time. We respect each other's space. We commiserate about what difficulties we have doing the things that we need to do to get our lives finished. We're both around the same age. I think the fact that our personalities are a little bit opposite really works in our favor. She's very nice and sweet and political, and I'm very, don't be ridiculous. Let's talk the truth. Stop sugarcoating everything, and I think that works. I think if we were both abrupt and rude, it would be terrible. And I think if we were both sugarcoating, nobody would get the real story. I think that's what makes us, go well. I can't give you an example of like two bad co-hosts. I really can't. All I can do is that if you are going to take a co-host, that your ego is not involved, that their ego is not involved, that you both do equal work towards moving the show forward, not just during the recording. That is like, you guys know, it's like 15% of having a successful show.
Yeah.
The rest of it is the marketing and the writing and the emailing and and if you are not doing an equal portion of that, it will fall apart. It can't stay because you're eventually going to get resentful and then you're not going to want to record with that person. Then when you get on the recording, it's going to sound tense. It's just a mess.
Yeah, because pretending that you're not angry while you're talking to them, that's a problem.
Or that you think they're funny when you're just like, I hate this girl. I mean, you can't.
Yeah,
so,
that doesn't work.
So it has to be set up in a way where you are both like playing to your strengths and doing the things that you're best at and that doesn't overlap too much. Was that too long of a spiel?
Perfect, and it's good advice, definitely.
I'm never
too
aware
long
of
of the spiel.
Yeah.
So going into this together as co-hosts, what was your strategy in launching it to build an audience, capture followers? Like, did you have a very good plan in place, or was it we came together and just went with it?
We had a very little plan in place because, as I said, it was our passion project, and so we weren't focusing on it so much at first. I think we were just kind of like, and also me personally, because I had so much strategy and focus launching Lady Business Radio, I was like very particular about how often, how much, how I tweet, how I Facebook, boosting posts, stuff like that. That like with She Podcast, I was just like, let's just see what happens. Maybe it'll grow. Maybe no one will listen. Let's just see how it goes. It was much more of an experiment even I guess that's a strategy. I guess even that was a strategy. I can't even tell you if it's not, because for me, it was anyway. I think Elsie probably would have dedicated more time to it if she could have, but she didn't have the time, so she didn't. And then for me, I was just like, I really can't because I'm so busy strategizing for this other thing. So let's just see how it goes. And then I guess from the time I started it, I'm trying to think, was I already pregnant? It was 2014. I was probably already pregnant. I was a little bit pregnant when we started the show, just a tiny bit pregnant. And so I think she knew eventually that I would leave, and it was growing. And then I was gone for about 4 months. During that time, I saw that both the group and the downloads for Lady Business Radio stagnated. And I saw that the She Podcast group was growing like crazy pants, and the downloads were growing like crazy pants. And so I was like, wow, I wonder what would happen if we put some thought into this thing. Because we haven't yet. So when I came back, that's when I was like, I really want to put thought into this. And it just so happened to be 2015 because he was born at the end of 2014. So it was like, this year we're going to try thinking about it and making an effort. Hey, let's see what happens. And it really worked.
Yeah.
It really did work. So I would say 9 months of just like throwing it into the wind, and then beginning of last year, really trying. Now, because I came back from maternity, we had 1,000 goals and I felt like all year I was playing catch up. Don't forget we have to launch this tomorrow. Don't forget we have this. We have to present on Thursday. Don't forget we have this webinar. Like everything was like last minute, constantly like running to catch up with ourselves. So this is the first year I think where like we took December and we were like, okay, once a quarter we're going to launch this. Once a month we're going to have that. How are we going to be able to support these people? What things are we going to we really want to focus this year on growth, because the people who listen really seem to like the show, but we, like most podcasts, have hit a wall with growth. Even though we seem to be getting, quote, more famous, unquote, we're not getting more listeners necessarily. And I think so there needs to be some outreach, some guest blogging, maybe some more interview. I don't know. It's all an experiment, right? Mm-hmm. But our strategy, at least my strategy, is to do a lot of guest blogging, to add blogs to our website, because right now we just have show notes, no articles. And Elsie and I have a lot of knowledge that we can, put forth, and that may help our traffic. Mm-hmm. So if you start writing articles, then we'll get more web traffic. Maybe that means we'll get more listeners. If it doesn't, it just means we'll have more readers. Audience is audience. I don't really care what they're doing. If they're reading the blog, if they're seeing us on Facebook, really, if it's a business, you don't care as long as they buy. I don't care. I think listening will be their most fun choice, but that's just because Elsie and I are funny together. But I don't really care as long as we're getting out of it what we want to get out of it, what our goals are, which are to do it full time and not have to do these other things, to hustle.
So you're talking about the overall marketing that comes along with podcasts, which is perfectly leads into what I wanted to ask you next, why you think podcasting is such a solid approach to marketing a business online.
So many good reasons why. I mean, if you are someone who's eloquent and well-spoken and you have a personality, it shows you off in a way that nothing else could ever show you off. And I don't even really recommend YouTube, because I try to do a YouTube show, and besides the hassle, I mean, you have to really stop what you're doing and stare at me. Mm-hmm. And like, who wants that? So no, but I mean, like, it's a halting activity, whereas audio podcasts you can take anywhere. You can do it while you're blogging, you can do it while you're vacuuming, you can do it while you're running, you can do it while you're driving, you can do it anywhere. And so people tend to listen more, and then because you're in their ear, they form a relationship with you that they can't elsewhere. It feels like you're talking directly to them. And so as a result, they become very loyal, very diehard fans. You can't get that from people, yes, are diehard fans of your blog. Oh, I love her articles, I love her emails, but it's a passing thought. It's not, I love that girl. Like, podcast audiences are so enthusiastic about how much they love you. It's very different. And that comes from talking to them directly. And again, I felt like, and that's actually one of the other reasons I started one in the first place, because I felt like I used to speak. Like I said, I've been doing sort of the game show thing since I was a kid, and I was always on stage doing theater. I've done stand-up comedy. I've done a cappella singing. And so one thing in an online business you miss if you're that kind of person is being on stage. I mean, especially when you have children, you can't travel to speak that much. I really needed an audience. I missed having an audience that I could talk to and clown around with. And so once I started doing that, it was like they came out of the woodwork, because it just clicked. I'm natural at it. And I'm much more natural at it. I mean, not that I'm a bad writer, but you can really get a feel for my personality in a way that you couldn't before. And I'm sure you guys know that now.
We've gone from somebody that I've never met to now I actually love you.
Yeah.
Aww, that's
I want to hang out more often now.
We're going to have to work on getting you to be a little more outspoken, and you got to bring your personality up a little bit, though.
So shy.
So tell me, on a serious note, what mistakes have you made that you, if looking back, that you could have avoided? Or maybe put another way, to new podcasters, what would you say not to do?
I mean, everyone says just get it out there as fast as you can. And I agree with that, except for one thing. Like, I did not care or pay attention to and I'm a branding person, so you would think that it would make a difference. But I just slapped a logo on a square and put it in. and then about 6 months in, this was Lady Business Radio, about 6 months in, I was like, I'm never a new and noteworthy, and I'm getting really good downloads. Oh, maybe if I had some decent graphic, and it's true that you don't have good art, they don't promote you. They don't put you in what's hot. They don't put you in new and noteworthy. So I wasted my entire new and noteworthy time because I had terrible, terrible art. But I was in what's hot almost the second I fixed it. It was like the weeks and weeks after, the second I was, had decent graphic art, I was featured all the time, and even featured, and I think right now it's still featured in, Inspiring Women's Voices, which was on the front page of iTunes. That would have never happened if I hadn't paid attention to my branding. I think the branding is important, especially in iTunes, because that's the only thing people know to see before they push play. And if it just looks like a logo on a square, like, what's the incentive? Yeah. What's the incentive for them to push play? That's really important. And I didn't pay enough attention to it at the beginning. Systems, especially if you're going to have an interview show, it's so important to automate some of that. And Kimberly, you and I did some back and forth, like in Facebook. If that's just, for me, because I was doing so many a week, and because I was asking people all the time and getting pitched so often, I was drowning in those types of messages. And then when I would go to put the show up, I didn't know where the information was. I couldn't find it in Gmail, and that's because we did it via Facebook. Mm-hmm. And so I had to, I bought Schedule once, and now whoever it was, however they were asked, it went through the same system. And then I would swipe all the notes from the form, put them in Evernote, and then I had what I needed to go. And then I had what I needed when I was scheduling. I had what I needed for my VA. Having a VA, that was very important as well. It was so many little tasks, and sometimes I would, even if I wrote down the whole process, so many little tasks that I would forget. And again, with Lady Business Radio, I was so systemized. Like, I had the show notes, and then I had where they could subscribe, and then I gave it to my VA. And then I would take the show notes, and I would make 5 tweets, and then I would schedule them for every 3 hours. And then those tweets would go into the past episodes when the next show would come around. And then I would do a Facebook post at this time and a group post at this time. And then I would do a weekly email at the end of the week. Like, it was very it was very systemized, and it had to be that way or I could have never gotten it done. And now that I don't do that show anymore, I don't really have that system for She Podcasts, and I'm doing a lot of it myself, and I feel like I'm drowning again. I need a VA like immediately.
Yes. And aren't they amazing? What's been
it just helps your head function.
Does. Now let's do this. Let's shift gears a little bit. I got a series of 10 quick questions to rattle off to you. None of them are coming. And
great.
If we could, we'll start off with my favorite question: Windows or Mac?
Mac.
I think the whole podcasting planet is using a Mac. Except
We're the only ones.
We are the only ones. I swear, we're going to change the world.
Not even because honestly, it's because I was a designer. Just large files, you can't. PC, it kills PCs.
Yeah.
Can't function. They can't function.
Makes sense.
Oh, don't you turn on me. What are you talking about?
Sorry.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Cat or dog?
I want to say cat because cat. Because you know what? There's really self-sustaining. I would have never said that 20 years ago, but ever since I met my husband, he had a cat. I'm all cat, no dog.
As soon as you get a cat, you switch to that side. It's true.
Because they're so independent. There's so much maintenance, and I just don't have the patience or the time for that.
Most recently read book?
Ugh. I knew you were going to ask me about books.
Lie then.
I don't really read books. I'm trying to read several books right now, and there's like 4 or 5 in Kindle that I'm reading. Essentialism is one of them. The 12-week, what's it called? 12-week work year. Kind of like 4-hour work week, but basically it's like how to think of your whole year in a quarter. Gosh, I'm not good with books. I'm a magazine girl.
Favorite vacation spot?
I had very good times when I was in New Orleans, Louisiana. I've been there twice, and it was super fun. But I also like sunbathing, and I like to be in the sun. So I would say St. Martin, I think, is where it was.
Oh, that's nice.
That's
It was really nice. It was pretty nice, yeah.
Would you consider yourself a techie or a non-techie?
Techie, for sure. And I'm very impatient with non-techies, actually.
Do you have a favorite success quote?
I have a couple. I have Joan Rivers, who said, "I survived by saying what everyone else is thinking."
Love that.
Lucille Ball, who said, "I'm not funny. What I am is brave." And those are the two that always rattle off. Yeah. The Joan Rivers one especially, because she did succeed by saying what everyone else is thinking, and I think that's a great role model for people. And then, of course, Tina Fey's "Bitches Get Shit Done."
Yeah, that's a good one.
Am I allowed to say that on here? No?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay.
What's a tool you use every day that you would absolutely hate to live without?
Anything Google, Gmail, G-Calendar, Google Drive, Google Docs, Google Clothing Line, Google Shoes. I cannot get enough of the Google stuff. I don't use, it's weird because I don't have Google Phone. I don't, but I mean, like, I cannot live without their digital stuff.
I am a huge Google fan.
Yeah, me too.
What do you do for fun? Number 9.
I like shopping. I do that for fun. Cooking sometimes. I try to learn how to make new stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm not that great of a cook.
Last question. Number 10. What is the most rewarding thing you've been able to do for someone because of your podcast?
That is interesting. That's an interesting question. Because of my podcast. I mean, to be honest with you, with the She Podcasts community, I get a lot of feedback every day about how much I've helped people start their own shows, how much I've helped. I mean, even recently, people monetize their shows and start to make money from it. But during Lady Business Radio, I interviewed someone who had ADHD like me, and I had a listener write me and tell me that it really made a difference because her little girl was starting to exhibit. She said she would have never considered having her little girl tested or giving her medication, except that she and I, the interviewee, her name was Kendrick Shope, she and I both said if only someone would have paid attention and medicated us properly when we were young, I probably could have been valedictorian. But the fact is that you struggle not knowing why you're not living up to your, well, it's a long story. The point is, I could have changed her academic trajectory because her mother was listening and paid attention and heard women say, please don't let me do this by myself. I need help organizing my head, please.
Yeah.
And that was extremely rewarding. It's things like that. And I mean, I get the same and similar, feedback all the time with that group. Just people saying what a big difference it is just to have it and to have people there to help put their show together and to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud of that.
Tell us, if you would, Jessica, we're wrapping her up here. Where can our podcasting friends find out more about your products, your podcast, and anything else you'd like to share?
Shepodcast.com is where you can find the current show that Elsie and I do, the one that we talked about so much together today. And then my site is jessicakupferman.com. It has my old show on it, which people still listen to and find useful and helpful. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much it. I mean, Lady Business by itself is ladybusiness.biz, and it's still live, but you can also just get it from my site. But check out She Podcast, whether you are or aren't a female, because the show is for everyone, and we have a lot of he podcast listeners. They're always ashamed to it. They're always like, don't tell anyone I listen. But, like, they're the ones that write us. It's so funny. It's like they're not allowed. It's adorable.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And of course, I encourage all of our listeners to definitely go ahead and be sure to check out Jessica's show and subscribe to She Podcasts at shepodcast.com, and of course on iTunes. If you love her show, always be happy to leave reviews. I know that helps us podcasters a lot. And Jessica, I want to thank you so much for sharing your personal story. Nice to hear the little baby in the background. That's always very welcome, and also for being so generous in sharing your podcasting knowledge and your experiences.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast. You guys are great. Thank you.
And to all of our podcasting friends, a reminder, if you have your own podcast or podcasting tool that you want us to feature here on the show, simply send us the details to feature me at podcastingmastery.com, and we may do exactly that.
And if you're wondering if adding audio into your marketing mix is something you should consider, I have a very special report just for you. And it's entitled The 12 Audio Marketing Ideas You Can Use Today to Sell More Products, Services, and Courses. And you can download this free report at podcastingmastery.com/ideas.
If there's something here we mentioned that you missed, keep in mind we keep all of the show notes for you, including links to She Podcasts. And you can find the show notes for this episode at podcastingmastery.com/PM015.
Kimberly, thanks so much. Jessica, you are awesome. And to all our podcasting friends, we'll catch you on the next episode of Podcasting Mastery.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us in the Secret Beach Hut studio. If you are ready to start your podcasting adventure and to learn the secrets of creating a profitable podcast, James Martell has boiled it down for you to the 12 core elements of the No Fail podcast in his most recent free report. Available for a limited time at podcastingmastery.com/no-fail. But don't wait, this report won't be free for long. So be sure to grab your free copy today to learn the secrets of podcasting your way to a stress-free lifestyle at podcastingmastery.com/no-fail.